Hello everyone, it's Wednesday, which means it's time for Real Talk with Real Pros. I'm your host, Tom Houghton, coming to you live across the internet. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks so much for tuning in. NJ Peterson 8 is here. How's it going? Give me a little wave. We've got a great guest joining us today. I'm really excited to welcome Matt Reisinger back to Real Talk with Real Pros. So stay tuned. Matt's going to be joining me in just a second. If this is your first time tuning in to Real Talk with Real Pros, you might be asking yourself, what am I in for, Tom? Well, let me tell you, you're in for a riveting conversation, and we've got lots of great information we're going to talk about. Stay tuned because he's going to be joining me in just a hot second. Give me a little wave if you can see me and hear me. Thumbs up if you're doing great on your Wednesday. Hit that heart button because Matt is here.
Hey, what's up, Tom?
Thank you so much for coming back to have a conversation with me today on
Totally,
Real
Tom.
Talk with Real Pros. So we're going to get started. Again, if you're just tuning in, if you got a question for Matt, feel free to leave a comment down below and we'd be happy to answer your questions. I've got some questions that were sent in over social media, so I want to make sure we definitely answer those. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. And let's get started first, Matt. We chatted back in April, so it's been a couple months. It's felt like years since we chatted because of this whole pandemic. Sure. So tell me, what are you up to? What's life like in Austin?
Man, life is good. I'm shockingly, well, not shockingly, I'm very blessed to be as busy as I am, Tom. And you know, it's funny. I've talked to a bunch of builder friends, even builder friends from across the country in the last couple days, and it feels like a lot of builders are in the same boat I am, where projects that were maybe on hold in the past are all of a sudden, hey, we want to move forward. You know, these things that I didn't love about my house, all of a sudden, now that I'm at my house all the stinking time, are a bigger deal to me. Or, you know, for instance, in Austin, good luck trying to get a pool contractor to call you back because everybody and their brother has decided they want to add a pool to their house all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And the anecdotal kind of evidence of that is I've had more interviews for new jobs in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months than I had in the previous 12 months combined. So
That's
everybody's
fantastic.
on hyperdrive trying to do a project. So I think that is happening in other parts of the country as well. That's not just Austin. I talked to a Boston builder the other day that was the case. I talked to a friend out in California that was the case. So I think it's happening in other markets as well. But I do want to be sensitive to people watching this who are maybe in a market that's not quite as hot, that are, you know, that are struggling, that maybe don't have higher end clients. But I do get the sense that even if you're not in a higher end client market, there are still those smaller projects happening. People are putting decks in. People are doing outdoor projects. People are doing that master bath remodel because all of a sudden they realize, gosh, my bedroom's my office. I use this bathroom 3 times a day now instead of just at night. So, you know, compared to the restaurant industry or the travel and airline industry, thank God we do what we do, right, Tom?
That's right. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I can attest to here in Omaha, I've talked to a couple contractors here locally, and they've said the same thing. You know, they've had bids out to clients that they haven't heard from in months, you know, and all of a sudden the phone's picking back up and saying, hey, remember 6 months ago you came out to your house and you heard nothing from me? Well, guess what? I want to move forward with this project now. So,
Yeah.
which is great. That's fantastic. So hopefully that trend continues. I'm excited to hear that's happening for you. I saw somebody else commented into and said they were slammed with phone calls. So that's awesome to hear. Again, we wish everybody's business the best of success during this trying time. I like to think that hopefully I'm a positivity guy. So I'm like, we're getting to the end sometime. It's coming sometime. So I don't know when, but sometime. It feels like
I don't know,
close.
man. I don't think we're going to see the end of this anytime soon. I think we're living with this as the new normal for a while.
Yeah. Which is okay as long as you can adapt to it. So maybe let's talk about that. How are you adapting your projects right now? I mean, we talked again back in April. I know you're talking about setting up like sinks on the job sites, and I just saw a photo on your stream about that a couple days ago. Still doing the sinks on the job sites, still social distancing on the job site. So anything else changed?
Interesting enough, we've had some local regulation change just recently. My city, Austin, Texas, is a pretty I don't know what you want to call it, forward-thinking city, I guess is probably the best way to put it. And they've done a bunch of research to feel like construction is a place that transmission is happening. And so they've
Mm,
really cracked down on us, which is both good and bad.
yeah.
It's hard to be upset when we're talking about lives,
Yeah.
but it means that, for instance, we have to designate a COVID safety officer on each one of our job sites. I think the
Interesting.
regulation when it came out was really more in mind with commercial job sites where you might have 150 guys on a job, let's say,
Yeah.
50 electricians and 50 plumbers at a time. But it trickles down to residential as well, where there might be 5 people on site. We have to have one person on site at all time designated as the COVID safety officer who's monitoring temperatures at the beginning of the day, filling out a form, making sure we have everyone's contact info, and we know exactly who is at that job site. So in the future, if someone says, hey, I tested positive, we can backtrack and trace that.
Sure.
And anecdotally, we have had a couple of our guys test positive and have had to had some people stay home for 2 weeks. So, construction, you and I do a job where we can do a lot of Zoom calls
Yeah.
and do some office slash home office time. But if you're a tradesman, you're not running wires or plumbing pipes or doing carpentry work from your house.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out how to work safely, and I feel like we've done a good job of kind of navigating that between taking the precautions, wearing face coverings, that kind of thing. And anecdotally, my wife's a physician, Tom, and actually has a YouTube channel too. I'll plug my wife's YouTube channel for a
There
second.
you go.
She just made a video recently on flying. We actually flew last week, and she made a video on the plane of like how to be safe flying. And she mentioned and has been talking to me about eye protection and how wearing safety glasses, or actually where I wear contacts, but a lot of times I wear glasses. She says you should wear glasses more often. You should, if you're a worker that has safety glasses on, wear them all the time because a lot of transmission actually happens through your eyes. And if you can avoid, someone who's a couple foot away coughing and having their particles hit your eyeballs, that's a way that you can resist getting the virus potentially. So, that's something interesting to think about as a carpenter on the job, a workman who's wearing safety glasses anyways. Maybe as GCs, we should start wearing our safety glasses as well on the job sites.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see a couple people leaving a comment there too about feeling safer when they're just wearing glasses. So, I mean, it's true. We got to protect our eyes. We've only got 2 of them, and I like to see things. I don't know about you. So,
Yep.
make sure you take care of yourself out there. Stay safe, everyone. That's some good stuff right there. And don't forget to check out Matt's wife's YouTube channel. So,
Thanks, Tom.
yeah,
Little
hey, while you're at it, go follow Buildertrend, go follow Matt if you just tuned in, and get us all, follow us everywhere. It's good. Just
give us
following
some
all
love.
around.
Hey,
Yeah,
that's Matt.
exactly.
That was Matt Bangs Wood who made that comment. Matt is a carpenter, and I see him wearing glasses a lot. So Matt, keep wearing those safety glasses, man. That's good for you.
That's awesome. So let's talk about what's happening specifically on a couple job sites that you're working on. I know you've got your own project, your own house.
Hmm.
So how's progress going with that?
It actually has been slightly slower because of this. I'm waiting on some materials. My Mitsubishi HVAC system, I've got half the equipment, and I've got a couple pieces of equipment that are just back ordered, basically. So it's funny. I was driving home from work the other day, and I have there's a GMC Chevy dealer right near my office or right near my house, and I drove by the dealer, and I kind of did a double take. Normally, their lot is full of trucks. And it's off Research Boulevard, which in Austin is 183. It's this big highway. And I'm going down the access road, and I was like, it's weird. There's like 3 trucks when there's normally, I don't know, 30, 50, some huge number.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until later. Oh, I wonder if it's just because manufacturing has been off and people are still buying trucks and or buying trucks again. That's going to affect me in construction. And I had a conversation with one of my project managers earlier today about ordering plumbing fixtures for a job. Normally we order our rough end plumbing around the time that framing starts. We need my tubs, I need my valves, anything that's going to be in the wall. But then we don't order anything else until much, much later in the process. Usually not at least till we hit sheetrock, or later are we ordering the kitchen faucet and the tub valves and all these, or the tub trims. And we had a conversation about, I wonder if we should just go ahead and order all that now, make a spot in our warehouse and store it. I hate storing things because invariably something gets lost. It's an opportunity for theft. Plus, I just have clutter around my storage space.
Yeah.
But you know what? I maybe need to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm experiencing that on my project, and it's a big upflow box that I need, but they're just not available. So
Yeah.
I'm waiting for 3 extra weeks to get it.
Yeah. Looks like somebody just wrote in. Suddenly Farming said that they're getting ready to start construction on a home build for themselves and are having trouble sourcing some of the materials. So Suddenly Farming, let us know where you're watching. That goes to everybody right now. If you're watching this right now, let us know where you're watching from. And let us know, too, if you're seeing the material shortage that Matt's talking about in your area. That'd be interesting to kind of track across the world
Yeah,
here.
and if you could comment on that, I'd like to know, Suddenly Farming or others, what is it that you're having trouble? Nixon, my buddy up in Dallas, just said it's hardware for 5 months on order. That's a
Yeah.
great call, man. I bet hardware is going to be really hard to find, especially something that's maybe not a really popular, they make 5 million of these piece of hardware. If it's anything custom or some finish that's not chrome, let's say,
Yeah.
we ought to be ordering those things ahead of time. Oh, he's up in DFW.
Yeah.
Engineered columns. That's interesting.
Yeah. Interesting
Yeah.
stuff.
I'd like to, if anyone else watching is having some shortage or back order issues, tell me where you are and
And
what
what
it
it
is
is. Yeah.
that'd be helpful, I think, for our audience, Tom.
Absolutely. And we'll report back too as those come in. But let's continue talking. So you're trying. I mean, Matt, we know that you love trying new things. That's what I love about you. You're a learner. You like to experience new things. So I
I
saw
do.
that you're trying out some new washer and dryers in house, right?
Yep. Yep.
You've got what else did you do? Oh, you just did something about the water softeners, right? Or not water softeners, water heaters.
Yeah, I just published a video yesterday on heat pump water heaters. I'm building this house, Tom, that's I'm trying to get to a really, really high level of efficiency, and I'm actually starting down the road. I'm not totally there yet, but to get pre-certified through Passive House. And it's a lot of hoops to jump through to get to this, but I think I'm doing it for several reasons. Number one, because I always like to do everything to the nth degree. But excuse me.
That's all right.
But
Yeah.
the other reason is I want to encourage people to build better. And so, anyways, I've been doing a bunch of research. What's the best water heater for my house? Which one should I use? And I actually had a leftover water heater, not really leftover, a water heater we didn't use, that I used for a video. Basically, a manufacturer gave me one to make a video on almost a year ago, and I didn't have a project for it, so I thought, well, I should put this in my house. It's $1,800 new. It's been sitting in my shop. Let's use it. But I thought, well, if I'm doing that, I should at least research what are the other options. So I make this big video, and I just published it yesterday. And funny enough, I've had new information already since I published the video from a friend that installed one of the units I talked about. One of the units is a Japanese manufacturer called Sanden. And all these water heaters are listed by their efficiency rating, either an EF or I forget the other version. There's some other rating that has EF in it. But basically, a heat pump water heater gives you 4 times the amount of hot water that you put into it by dollars of electricity, or not quite 4. Some of them are between 3 and 4. But this model in particular that's made in Japan had a number that was around 3. But my friend who installed one in Austin, this is Christoph Irwin, for any of you watching who know him from Positive Energy, he actually installed one himself at his house, and he's telling me that number on the spec sheet is not right, because his experience is that he's spending like $6 a month in hot water.
Oh,
Just
wow.
a crazy, crazy low number.
Yeah, that's great.
And so he's saying that, hey, this number that's listed as the, miles per gallon number, so to speak, is off, because they must be testing or showing that this could be used in any climate zone. And down here in Texas, it's hot a lot. And because it's hot a lot, the efficiency of this heat pump, which is outside gathering the heat from a 100-degree day, is really friggin' efficient. Whereas if it was up in Canada, it's not as hot. Of course, it's going to be less efficient. Anyways, I just published this video literally 24 hours ago, and I already am thinking, oh my gosh, do I need to make a correction on the video
Yeah,
or an update? So
yeah,
I'm kind of working on that as we speak. And then the
yeah.
other thing you mentioned, Tom, that's kind of fun that's going on is I write some articles for the Journal of Light Construction, and I'm listed on their masthead as a what do they call me? A remote editor, an assistant editor, something like that. So I use that as a way to contact some manufacturers and say, hey, I run a YouTube channel, but I'm also press basically.
Right.
And so I reached out to several appliance manufacturers and said, hey, you guys have this type of laundry equipment that's called a heat pump dryer.
Yeah.
Most dryers, like what you and I have at our house now, they have a pipe to the outside that's a 4-inch pipe. You draw the air from the house. There's either a gas burner or there's an electric resistance coil that heats that air up hot. It tumbles it with house air and then sends it to the outside at a pretty large rate, about 200 or 225 CFM. And as a result, if that load takes 45 minutes, you've dumped a lot of your house air to the outside. These heat pump units, on the other hand, are ventless. They don't have a vent to the outside. And they just tumble the air, and then they kind of send it through like a dehumidifier, where they take the humidity out of the air, they dump it into a bucket in the machine, and they continue to dry the clothes. Now, they do make a little bit of heat in the room, but you're not dumping all this air to the outside.
Yeah.
So I talked Mila into sending me a brand new laundry pair to try for 30 days to basically understand how they work. Could they work for a family? How much heat do they add to the room? And I'm also going to put an energy monitor up to it to monitor how much energy we've got. And so I've been using it for a whopping 4 or 5 days now. I do have a big family. I have 4 kiddos.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I've been really, really impressed. The only downside so far that I've seen to the units is they're smaller.
Sure.
They're like compact size.
Yeah.
So I'm doing probably at least a third more laundry loads than I would have with my bigger Whirlpool units. Now, I'm
Sure.
interested to try some other manufacturers like Whirlpool. I've had a couple conversations, but they haven't confirmed that they're going to give me a demo set. And LG, I had 2 emails, and now they're not responding. And Samsung never got back to me. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm hoping that I could try 3 or 4 manufacturers and kind of make a video story on A, B, C, and D manufacturer, how well they worked, could they work for a family, and is this technology, which is really pretty common in Europe, could an American family adapt to it and make it work for us?
Yeah. Suddenly Farming just mentioned, obviously ventless are pretty common in Europe and Asia. I can attest to that. I used to live over in London, lived over there for 5 years. We used ventless. I will warn you, pulling that water jug reservoir out, that water can get extremely hot. So tell your kids to stay away from that, because I've had some close calls with that stuff. So, but it's impressive technology, and obviously, again, Europe, Asia, they're using it, so it must work. Obviously, again, you got to factor in like the American size of things, right? So we've always got, everything's bigger in Texas, right? So,
Yeah, that's right.
efficiency with that. So I'd be curious to see how that kind of shakes out. Keep us posted on that as well.
I'll let you know.
And to the folks in Scotland that wrote in, I think that was about the water heater, but I'm sure they could probably chime in too on the ventless stuff. Be curious to see their take on it.
We even have a friend from Brazil on. I know Brazilian builders too. I've met them at the International Builder Show, Tom, and they actually do quite a bit of videos too. They have a great feed on Instagram.
Awesome. So we got some questions. Again, if you've got questions, feel free to use that questions box down below. and I'll share it here on the screen so that way we can address it. If you don't mind, Matt, I just thought we'd dive into some more questions here.
Let's do it, Tom.
Yeah, so let's start with this first one here. So Melulo asks, induction or gas cooktop. So what's more popular in your client builds? What are you seeing right now?
That's a great question. I've actually that comes up quite a bit. And I remember very distinctly the first time I put an induction cooktop in almost 15 years ago now here in Austin. I had a client that had a big, Wolf range, one of these massive 48-inch wide units. And they said, hey, I'm interested though in induction cooktops as well, because I boil a lot of pasta. We do a lot of Italian dishes, and I hear they boil water really quick. So next to my 48-inch wide, massive, gas Wolf cooktop, I want you to put a 2-burner induction in the counter. And it looks, it's teeny. You can barely see it. It kind of blends in with the countertop. Well, I ended up talking to that client a couple months later, and sure enough, they hardly use their gas cooktop. They've got both burners working on overtime on their induction because they love it.
Wow.
It boils water super quick. It's really, really precise in their ability to change the temperature, and the pan heats up right away. There's no lag time. And since then, I still install quite a bit of gas because everyone has this feeling like, oh, if you're a pro chef, you need gas. But more and more people are going to induction, and the big reason to do induction actually is because of the indoor air quality issues with gas cooking. When you cook with gas, there's particles that are not always captured in your vent hood. And in fact, you should always use your vent hood if you run gas. And those particles are really pretty bad for you. And they can actually cross the blood and what's the word? It's basically the blood barrier in your lungs, so that they can cross into your body without being stopped by your lungs. So more and more people, I think, in the future will move to induction. And I can also see the day, honestly, in America, where we're going to move away from natural gas as a fossil fuel that we run into our houses.
Yeah.
That day will come. When I visited Vancouver, British Columbia, all the talk among the builders was how the city of Vancouver, starting in like 2024, won't allow you to install anything gas in new homes or existing homes, which means that if you have a 50-year-old house that has a gas water heater or a gas range and that dies, guess what you're putting in next? You're putting in electric.
Yeah.
Whether you have the electric line to it or not, you have to. They won't. You're not legally allowed to install one. So if it's happening up there in Canada, my guess is that'll happen here in the States too. It's just a matter of time.
Sure. I'm gonna roll that into something because I noticed watching the video, you mentioned obviously you're located in the South. You guys have got plenty of sunshine. You can use alternate energy a little bit more so than we can.
Yeah.
So you can use solar. Obviously everybody can use wind pretty much anywhere depending on where they're located, but specifically solar, as we see the increase in using electricity to cook and electricity to heat our water and electricity to use our dryer instead of gas. Like, I guess my question to you is, how does the rest of the world that doesn't necessarily have as much sun all the time, how can we benefit? Like, are you seeing any trends? Like, are we looking for more like better solar, or what's the next revolution there that will help cover the electric usage?
Yeah, it's a good question, Tom. I don't have a good sense for that in other climates just because I know our Texas climate so well, and it's getting to the point where it's a no-brainer to do a net zero ready house and bolt on some solar later so that you can be a net zero house or even a net positive house. Rustic Woodworks said geothermal. That can be an answer in the north. I'm not a huge fan because heat pump units are so reliable and they make so many millions of them, and they work in really cold climates too. The Mitsubishi, the LG, the Daikins of the world, they make units that are 100% capacity down to like -5 outside, Fahrenheit, that is. So, I think the world's going to move to an all electric future, and that's going to ultimately benefit even cold climates because there's a lot of benefits to going electric even in those climates as well.
Sure. Well, it's something I guess we'll keep an eye on, obviously, as time progresses. Let me answer this next question here. This one is from Caleb. Caleb asks, where do you see people spending more money when they previously saved in that area? I'm assuming this is in terms of obviously using products in their house or remodeling. Um, so, any
That's good.
thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question, Caleb. You know, even just recently, I would say people are spending money in areas like outdoors where they didn't necessarily before. I can think of two or three projects I have in the pipeline right now that have said, actually, I do want to add that retaining wall so that I can get a bigger pool or a bigger backyard, a more outdoor living space. All of us have been living through kids at home when they previously were at school, and we're about to go back to school. We'll see what happens, who goes back and who doesn't.
Yeah.
But when the kids are home, man, we got to get them outside. And if they can't play in the neighborhood or they're not allowed to be around other people, you got to have some kind of a backyard for them to play in.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a place that people are spending more on. I think another place that people are spending time on is they're realizing, hey, now that I'm home, I do have to do some home projects. I'd rather do a home project that's a fun project and not a maintenance project. So I should probably opt for more durable materials, things that are going to have a longer life. Someone earlier mentioned, who was that here?
About the,
IDA building products, moving away from vinyl siding in favor of hardy siding. I think a lot of that is happening in general in America, even minus this whole COVID thing, because people are saying, I don't want to maintain stuff. I want stuff that's going to be lasting and durable. I want to put a metal roof on because I know it's going to go 50 years. I don't want to have to worry about changing my shingles out. And so I'll spend a little more ahead knowing that there's less work to do in the future. I see that as a big trend in America.
yeah. Good stuff. This one from Scott Build said, with the United States being one of the only countries that does not use AAC, why do you think that is? And for
Air,
those people who don't know what AAC is, we probably should discuss that real quick.
it's autoclave or aerated autoclave concrete. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
It's basically a concrete block that has some insulation value, is what it is. I get this question a lot because I actually have a fairly international audience on the Build Show. We're probably 90% North America, but we're at least 10% international. And anytime I publish a framing video, people are like, what are those crazy Americans doing without wood? Well, you know what the crazy Americans are doing? We're using resources that are around the corner from us. That
Mhm.
if you're an island in the Pacific or you're in Europe, you probably don't have a forest that you can cut down and regrow every 20 years, but we do.
Yeah.
And you know what? With some of the building products we use these days, when it comes to waterproofing and air sealing, I'll put any of my wood framed houses up against your German AAC build houses any day when it comes to energy efficiency, when it comes to air sealing and comfort. The one thing that concrete has, or AAC has, though, is hurricane resistance, termite resistance, some of these other things.
Yeah.
So, if you're a North American builder, you build with wood because wood is around the corner. Wood is good. It's really easy to work with. We have a vast network and system of manufacturers and builders and tradesmen who know it, understand it, use it day in and day out, and it's really easy for us to build with. And we can build buildings that'll last 500 years with wood as long as we build them correctly. I built a house a couple years ago using Joe Stebrick's perfect wall method, and Joe Stebrick says, hey, if you build with this method, you could build a house that would last 500 years. Build it on a good foundation and do these few things well, and boom, this house will last for 5 centuries. That's a pretty impressive build
Yeah.
for a wood framed house.
Yeah.
Now that is exclusive of not having an earthquake or not having a Category 5 hurricane blow your house down.
Sure.
But where I am in kind of central Texas, I don't have those issues where I am. And there's a huge swath in the nation that doesn't have tornadoes, doesn't have hurricanes, that sort of thing. So wood framing's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, it's good. Good answer. Next one here. I think this is probably from an end user perspective, from a customer. How do I know a GC is honest with regards to bids on a new custom home build? I think this is
Ooh,
a really good question.
that is a good question. It's funny you say that because I've been mulling a video topic that might actually be Friday's video, which is 3 bids are dumb. And you know, the world in general thinks that if I bid things, that's a way to keep people honest. The problem with that is you need to, as the customer, do your homework on who's even going to give you a bid. And you might need to actually pay them for that bid if they're worthwhile. For instance, when you come to me as a prospect and say, hey, I want you to bid this house for me, the first thing I say is, well, why are you bidding this to multiple people? And the second thing I say is, well, I would be a part of that process, but you're going to have to pay me for that. We charge between $10,000 and $20,000 to do the bidding process for a client. And we're very open with here's the pricing from all of our people, but we don't necessarily 3-bid many phases of the build. There aren't 3 framing contractors that I have a relationship with that I trust to do a good job and to use my methods and materials and to perform at the level of expectation that I have. So I have one framer bid it. It's a framer that I've trained, that I trust, that I have an annual contract with in terms of his price, and he gives me a day rate and a week rate. We decide together based on historic data how long it should take him to build this house. I hold him to it, but if he's a week late because of whatever reason, whether it's change orders or a change in material or whatever, I pay him for that week. You know, it's a very open and honest relationship between us. And if you're watching this and you're interested in having a builder build you a house, or you're a builder thinking about subcontractors, I think we need to change our paradigm about getting multiple bids on things. And instead, we need to spend our time getting the homework on who it is that we're going to actually talk to. And it's laziness, frankly, to get 3 bids and expect all 3 of those people to be of the same quality. You know, if you just went out to the parking lot and said, I want 3 cars that have steering wheels and 4 tires, do you think you'd get the same thing between those 3 cars parked out there? One of them is a brand new Lexus. One of them's a 1970s Buick. They both have a steering wheel and 4 wheels. Do you think they're the same thing? No. Right. So why would you expect 3 bids from 3 different builders to be an apples to apples comparison?
Yeah, very fair. Good stuff. I think we got a couple, one more question from the Q&A, and then I know some people put some in the comments here. So let's answer this one first. How much of your client communications are done through Buildertrend? This question's near and dear to my heart. I didn't write this. Glauser building.
Yeah, good question, Daniel. Really, pretty much all of it is funneled through there because I want to make sure I have a record of all those conversations. I do mainly cost plus building, which means that we can turn on a dime. I can change whatever a client wants changed or do whatever they want, and I want them to have that option. Now, I will record that and make a change order out of that, even if it's a $0 change order, to make sure that we've recorded that. But I want a record of all that. In my days prior to Buildertrend, where I didn't do that, if a scuffle came up with the client, oh man, it was brutal trying to figure that out. And you ultimately end up in a lose-lose situation when you're trying to look at old text messages or old emails or whatever if you don't have a platform like Buildertrend keeping track of all that. And then the other thing about Buildertrend that I mentioned briefly was the change order process. Before was me on a job site or a project manager job site. We're talking about something. Okay, yeah, you want to make this change? No problem. We'll go back to the office and get that change order ready and send it out to you. Now it's grab my iPad, pull up Buildertrend, and literally I can do it all on the job site right then and there. You can sign right here in my iPad, and we're done in the same meeting with that change order, and it's all been recorded.
Yeah, That's so important, especially nowadays. I mean, communication is key, of course, with homeowners, making sure that you're giving them the best possible experience. And obviously, in 2020, everything's digital now. You might as well take that process digital and use the platform. Of course, we'd love if you use Buildertrend to help kind of track all of those, the changes, your daily communication, and just, use it through Buildertrend. I think that'd be great.
Yep.
Um,
Hey, Tom, let me answer this question that Proud to be an Italian one
yeah.
put up. So what's wrong with taking the lowest responsible bidder? Ooh, that's a hard question to answer. It's kind of a loaded question, but I like that you added the word responsible bidder in
Yeah,
there.
that's good. That's good.
Here's a quick story for you. When I started down this path of not bidding projects anymore was 13, 14 years ago. I had a client come to me during the last recession. This is probably '07, '08. And I was super hungry for work and said, "Hey, Matt, I want you to bid this for me. I'm going to give it to three builders that are all good builders, and I want you to give me a price." And the plans were phenomenal plans. It was actually a Barley and Pfeiffer architects project, and they're well known for very thorough. It was probably 50 pages of plans and at least 50 pages of specs. Like every light bulb was spec'd. I knew exactly what was happening in the house. Very, very detailed. So, okay, sure. I mean, I was glad to get the house to bid, and they chose me and a builder that I knew who I felt like was a like-minded builder, very quality oriented, had good trades. In fact, we shared some trades, quite a few trades. I knew that he used my cabinet maker and some other people. And then a third guy that I didn't know. So we go through the process. It takes me a month to really compile the data. My bids are very, very thorough, meaning I had every line item down. So I present my package to the client, and it was a 3-ring binder with 2 or 3 bids in multiple phases, and a reason why I took this drywall guy instead of that drywall guy, and blah blah blah. The client, who is a very smart executive for a local company, chose me for the job and didn't really give me a lot of visibility on why I got chosen. So then, and basically just dismissed the other 2 bidders. "I'm really sorry you didn't get it. No reason why." So then I get the job and I start to get to know this guy. Ed was his name. Turned out to be a fantastic client. And I had the opportunity a few weeks later to say, "Ed, why did you choose me? Was it that you liked me? What was it?" He said, "Well, you were the middle bidder, Matt. This other guy's bid was too low and the other guy's bid was too high, so I chose you." I literally got picked because I was the middle
You're
bidder.
in the
Not that
middle.
I had a huge package, not that blah, blah, blah. And the client let me look at the other 2 bidders. And turns out the third guy, who was the low guy, he was using not very good subs. It really was the outlier. He was 15% less than me on an expensive job. It's like $1 million job. And as I looked through the bids, I realized, these aren't A quality subs. These are kind of C quality subs. And then I looked at the bidder who was more expensive than me, and this is a friend of mine. We were friends outside of being competitors. And I looked at his, and literally there was about 3 bids that were different, and that was it. In terms of dollar, we were like really neck and neck on almost all these categories. And the one that really stuck out with me was his cabinet maker. He chose a different cabinet maker that did like more furniture grade cabinetry, and I did a more run-of-the-mill cabinet guy. And there was like 2 or 3 other ones, and you know what? That added up to like a 5, 6, 7, 8% difference in the total bottom line. Was just 2 or 3 bidders.
Hmm.
And yet this client paid a ton of money for plans that were super detailed. And it made me realize, you know what? If you don't really spend the time to dig into it and understand which subs are people using, what's it going to be like to work with that builder? Do they use software that's going to help me organize my job? All these things, there's so many differences, such that I got a job because I was 6% or 7% less with only 3 subs that were different. And I could have bid those subs too. I just chose not to. I could have been 10% more. And you know what? That client ended up doing about 10% in change orders because we increased the quality on several things. So it just really confirmed in my mind that 3 bids is dumb.
Yeah.
And, if you're solely basing your decision on a subcontractor or a prime contractor, a GC, a home builder, on price, you're going to lose every time because it's hard. And it's not even just throw out the low ones and gain the high guy. Had that client done that, he would have chosen a different builder than me even, because the other guy chose two other subs that I could have chosen, and I chose the middle guy. So I'm sorry to open up a can of worms here on this
No,
one,
it's
Tom,
good.
but it's a whole different way to look at things, not bidding things, and it's going to be an interesting video if I do publish that, because I think we're going to get a lot of feedback, both negative and positive, about this. It's such a hot button topic.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome to the world of the internet. There's feedback
Oh yeah,
everywhere. So,
that's for sure.
but that keeps us humble. It's good. It's good stuff. So, good feedback there on taking bids. Appreciate that. I want to try to address a couple of these other questions really quick from the comments. This one from Simos looks like, could homeowners looking to dial in their landscaping benefit from servicing or using the services of a landscape architect, or going to a landscape designer for residential projects? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I've worked with both over the years, and there are trade-offs really. Sometimes a landscape architect's really the best choice because you're looking for a more dialed in, a more kind of overview thought to the whole process. Sometimes landscape designers can really just get focused on plant selection and some of the micro without the macro picture in mind.
Sure.
So, like GCs, like architects, like builders, interview several people, find out who you really fit with and who you like. Look at their portfolios, ask some past clients how they like their projects. And I would say make your decision based on those things, not necessarily based on price
Exactly.
or on first cost.
Sure. That's fair. Our friends over in Scotland, Mason and Sons, they asked about they're building a new workshop. Congrats, guys. So they're curious about concrete block or wood frame. And if it is wood, should it be treated or untreated? They get a lot of water over there. So curious about your thoughts on that one.
That's funny. Totally different climate zone. In general, when we frame with wood, we always use a capillary break between the concrete and the wood, which most of the time is sill sealer here for us in the United States. But you want to make sure that any water wicking up isn't going to hit your wood. And then we pretty much always frame the bottom where the house meets the concrete with pressure treated lumber. And then from there on up, we switch to non-pressure treated lumber. I don't know what your termite issues are there. You also want to think about termites. You want to make sure that whatever sheathing you use, I'd recommend a solid sheathing. I use a lot of Huber zip system, but it could be plywood, it could be OSB. Really concentrate on your waterproofing and air sealing on the bottom 2 feet, let's say, of the wall. And then after that, make sure you've got good water and air sealing, but it's not quite as pounded as the building goes closer to your overhang or your eaves. If the building has no overhangs, a more modern box, you really need to go to the top degree of waterproofing. If the house has some overhangs or bigger overhangs, you can be a little less diligent about those details as you go higher on the building.
Yeah, good stuff. Want to wrap up here really quick with this one last question that just came in. Let me see if I can pull it up here. The question here is, so you've been around the block for a little bit. You've obviously had a lot of great experience over the years. How did you integrate technology into your business? What was that like, going from your existing processes into this new, hybrid processes of having what you've already been doing and now using technology?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me relate that back to my Buildertrend experience, if that's all right, Tom.
Sure.
I used some other software prior to Buildertrend. And I actually had kind of a bad experience, and I switched back to an Excel-based kind of system for a lot of processes for a while. And I knew that it probably wasn't the best, but I was kind of limping along with that. It's been about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, that I switched to Buildertrend. And one of the best things that I did was I jumped all in. We did it on all our projects. And we also were one of the first builders to take advantage of Buildertrend's on-site consulting team. Um, Before I had this call with you, Tom, or this live feed, I told my office manager, Kristen, hey, I'm going on live with Instagram in a minute. She's like, man, I love those guys. They have the best people. It's not, she didn't say software first,
Sure.
right? She said they have the best people.
Mm.
And I can tell you that's my experience, and that's the experience probably of those people watching that are on Buildertrend, is it's the people that make all the difference, because you're going to have questions, you're going to need help, you're going to need to have your hand held as you move from whatever you've been doing before to a better system and better procedures. And that's what we've really liked about Buildertrend, is that you guys have been really good about holding our hand and being around when we need you.
Right.
So that's really, I think, been our secret sauce the last couple of years. As we've refined our processes and changed our processes, we've made sure that we had a technology solution and a technology partner in Buildertrend that was there for us every step of the way.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. I love that you plugged on-site consulting. Obviously, with the traveling, being a little bit more difficult right now, just want to let everybody know we've rolled out a virtual on-site consulting training now as an option. So if you're watching this and you were thinking about on-site before, where we come to you, we now offer that virtually as an option as well. So contact your Buildertrend coach or contact our team if you want to learn more. Appreciate the shout out to all the great people that work at Buildertrend. I'm really fortunate to get to work alongside these 500 plus great people. Having a great team is a huge part of your success. I know it is on your team. I've met a lot of your team in person as well. You've got a lot of great people down there on your team.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. If you have loved watching me chat with Matt here again, appreciate your time, Matt. We've got another one of these next week. We do these on a weekly basis on Wednesdays, so stay tuned for more Real Talk with Real Pros. We'll sign off, and we'll see you in the comments somewhere.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon. Have a great day. Talk to you all later.
Thanks.